So hello and warm greetings from the Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City. And here to give the fifth of these guided meditations related to the theme of the road, hello, and the road less taken. And one way I'm fond of understanding the potential of Buddhist practice is that it involves uncovering a treasure which is inside. That we have an amazingly valuable jewel or treasure waiting for us. And mostly we're too distracted to notice it, to know it. And with the busyness of life, or the survival of life. And but in order to discover it, it's a matter of being quiet, being able to be quiet enough to listen with a silent mind, or to feel with a silent space in the body. That this treasure, in a sense, is shy, or it's soft and gentle. And so when there's a lot of force and agitation or distraction or activity, it covers it over. And so one of the reasons I think a contemplative life, people who do contemplative practice, like quiet and silence, is because it's only there that we can really kind of, maybe for the first time, tap into this treasure and that we have inside. And so to listen to this place of goodness that we have. And one of the reasons it's so important is that this treasure, part of its manifestation or part of its orientation is to avoid causing harm. Because to cause harm intentionally is to live in a divided world, an agitated world, a loud world, where this inner sense of integrity, wholeness cannot be known. So to avoid harm, to avoid lying, to avoid confusing or clouding the mind or agitating the mind unduly. It's a place where love and care arise from. Of course, there's all kinds of love, but the love that contemplatives emphasize, that has a source deep within, that is available to love impartially, to love all beings, to care for everyone, including those people that are our enemies or difficult for us. So this treasure that we have. So as we sit this morning, meditate today, the orientation will be to listen, feel below the level of the discursive mind that thinks a lot. And maybe that mind doesn't quiet so much, but maybe not to orient or focus on it, but rather let it kind of recede to the background so that some deeper connection can occur. So to assume a meditation posture and gently close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, feeling your posture from the inside and seeing if your body itself, your meditative body, your contemplative body, wants any adjustments to your posture that helps you feel more connected, more alive, more attuned here in this body. And with that, the idea that, and in a manner that allows the body and mind to quiet, to settle, to be known, to be recognized, so something can relax. Take a long, comfortable inhale, feeling as much as you can your body, and an extended exhale, relaxing as you exhale. At the end of that extended exhale, let there be a moment or even an instant that you wait to breathe in, just long enough that it quiets the mind around the interest to breathe in without agitating the mind. And then letting your breathing return to normal. And again, for an instant or a moment or two, to pause at the end of the exhale. And in that pause, see if you can let there be a quieting of the thinking mind, a settling into the bottom of of breathing. And as you inhale, relax with the inhale, as if you're making room for the inhale to be complete. And then letting your breathing be normal. And now on the inhale, feel the thinking mind, allowing it to be as it is. Just know the agitation, the energy, the manner with which you're thinking. And on the exhale, to soften, quiet the thinking mind. Relaxing any physical tension that might be associated with thinking. And then centering yourself on your breathing, feeling and sensing the quiet, soft place inside. Maybe the place where breathing begins and ends. Or maybe a place within that is itself quiet, free of thoughts and ideas, but filled with a goodness, with a calm capacity for care and love. The shy place within that can feel the difference between something which feels wholesome and unwholesome, feels nourishing for us and not nourishing. as we approach the end of the sitting, to now listen or feel, sense for that quiet place within that is a treasure, that is the source of well-being, goodness, the orientation towards non-harming, non-greed, non-hatred. And maybe it's only an intuition of this quiet source within, a place of a quiet attitude, oriented towards what is wholesome, oriented to what is free, free of all attachments. To let the thinking mind become quiet in the way you would if you were listening to a faint sound far away. So let the thinking mind become quiet as you listen or feel to what's deep inside. And then bringing this meditation to an end, to find within an attitude of goodwill, kindness, gentleness, care for the world beyond your body, for the people in your lives, the strangers, the neighbors, out into your communities and around the world. To open the heart to be big enough to include all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. And may all beings be free. Thank you. So welcome to this fifth talk on taking the road less traveled. And the emphasis this week has been that there are two different operating systems within us. There's the operating system that's unwholesome and one that's wholesome. And unwholesome doesn't mean that it's bad or in and of itself, but rather it involves a way of activity of the mind that might even have good things in mind. It could be generous and loving parts of it, but that the way we engage in it has a kind of tension or has attachment or clinging or aggressiveness or anxiety connected to it, so that there's a quality of it which is de-nourishing for us rather than being nourishing for us. That is stressful for us rather than not just de-stressing, but better than that, that is inspiring for us. That brings us, kind of enlivens us in a wonderful, happy way. So there's these two different systems that we have, and that Dharma practice has a lot to do with becoming free enough, becoming settled enough, that we can start allowing this deeper system to inform us, to move through us, to carry us. And these are all kind of passive verbs in the sense that a lot of what we do is we get out of the way, we allow this organic movement to go through us and guide us. I love the metaphor the Buddha uses for a particular state of samadhi, that of a lake which there's nothing coming in from outside the lake to stir it up or to replenish it with muddy water. When it rains and the ground is muddy, the mud gets pours into the lake and stirs it up, but there's no inputs like that. Rather, how the lake gets refreshed is from a deep underground source, spring under the lake, bringing pure water, clean water back into the lake and filling it. And so the same way we can have this inner kind of spring that flows and moves us, that we don't have to do so much, but we allow for. When I studied Zen, part of the language there was that we don't do meditation, we are meditated. We don't do the practice, we are practiced. That somehow we put ourselves in a good posture. In Zen, you sat in a very clear, upright posture. And then the idea was to do very, very little, but to allow some deeper movement of to course through us, to be practiced by it. And they have kind of wonderfully grand language in Zen, where the idea is you're not sitting to attain anything, but you're sitting to be a Buddha. You're sitting to be awakening. And this idea that there's something here that's operating, which is quite significant, that is sacred, that is wonderful, that is not the normal way of behaving and doing and trying to make something happen, is quite inspiring. And so as we, one of the core teachings of Buddhism is the Four Noble Truths. And for people practicing mindfulness, in a sense, the path of mindfulness is complete with a deep awareness of the Four Noble Truths. In the Discourse on the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, it ends in the Four Noble Truths. And what's significant about that is that the Four Noble Truths end themselves with the Eightfold Path. And that Eightfold Path can be something that that's embodied within us. The ancient language is that the Eightfold, we can be endowed with the Eightfold Path. Some translators use, instead of endowed, use the word, we possess the Eightfold Path. But that's a little bit too acquisitive. But the idea is that it's not something we do, but something that's inherent in us, that flows through us. And this is a little bit different than how traditional Theravadan Buddhism teachings are, where the emphasis is on the third noble truth, the truth of the cessation of suffering. And so the Four Noble Truths are the truth of suffering, the truth of the arising of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the Noble Eightfold Path. And usually it's translated as the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. But it also can be the path of the cessation of suffering, what comes out of the end of suffering. And the Theravadan tradition kind of has the cessation as being the final ultimate goal. And it is, by doing so, they kind of miss, I think, a very core part of the Buddha's teaching, which is how we live our lives. And last week, or 2 weeks ago, I did this teaching on, from my translation of the Book of Eights, where what the emphasis there is how the sage lives their life. There's no emphasis on some final attainment of some ultimate state of mind, of consciousness, but rather living peacefully, living wisely, living happily. That it's attaining these qualities that's important. And so the Eightfold Path in the teachings of the Buddha is understood in two ways. It's understood as certainly as a practice, as 8 practices that we choose to engage in. And that's more for people who are beginning the practice, or for us, anybody, at times in our life when we're quite agitated, quite challenged, and in all kinds of ways. It's useful to have this practice to do. But it's also a practice, it's also the Eightfold Path, is when we've settled enough and we can listen deeply and we don't have any agitation of suffering that gets in the way, then it's being Buddha, it's being the Eightfold Path. And so someone asked a disciple of the Buddha in these ancient texts, what is the stream? What is the current that we enter into when we become a stream enterer? And the answer is, it's the Eightfold Path. We enter into this path, a stream, a current that's flowing through us. And the Eightfold Path has a lot to do with abstaining from anything which is unwholesome. And instead of that, what comes out of us is what is wholesome from this deeper operating system. And so over and over again in these ancient texts, kind of embedded in a way that many people haven't highlighted so clearly, is these 2 operating systems and this deeper connection to something deep. And some of the language of that depth is a distinction between that which is worldly and that which is dharmic or spiritual within us, the spiritual source. And then the idea of source is actually mentioned where the word yoni is used Yoni can be in the source of life, uh, uh, and so for humans it's understood to be the womb. But so there's a way of attending, way of knowing, way of being present in this world, uh, even a way of contemplation, of thinking, which is not the discursive mind, not this kind of mind of attachment, but rather comes from this deeper source, the yoni. And exactly how you want to translate yoni is, it can be quite personal, but from this deep source within. And so just this gestational place within, out of which can arise understanding, and more importantly, for people practicing mindfulness, can arise a way of attending, a way of of bringing our attention to whatever is there. And so it's at the very practice of awareness, of attention, of mindfulness, can come from these two sources. And many times people who are new are practicing from the control tower source. And slowly over time we learn that the practice can well up from deep inside. So it's not so much something that we're doing, but something that we are attuned to, something we allow for, something that flows or lives within us. And ultimately it leads to what lives within us is the Eightfold Path. And so we live in a kind of natural way, because this distinction is between what is natural and what is synthetic, what is natural and what is constructed by the mind, like made up in a sense from our attachments and clinging. And so this natural movement of having a right view, or the complete view, or the view from the source, having right resolve or intention, having complete or that view that comes from this source. And so it's in fact the word samma that's translated as right. If you dig deep down into the dictionaries and into the ancient texts, it doesn't quite mean like right and wrong. Some people have translated it as consummate. It's complete. It's what's is the complete expression of this deeper source that is available when we're free. And anyway, so there's a right intention, right resolve, right attitude. There is right or consummate or attuned or source speech. There is right action. There's a right lifestyle. Sometimes this is called right livelihood, but that's too narrow for what it is. It's a whole lifestyle that we live that feels right or consummate, and then there's this right effort, just the right way to make effort. That and the goal explicit here is to have an effort that feels like we're thriving, feeling of abundance, an effort which feels like something is growing. Again, this very different language that's possible when we understand that it's coming out of this deep source. And then right mindfulness and right concentration. It's remarkable that these deep things can be there. So in Theravadan Buddhism, we don't say that we sit like the Buddha, being Buddha, they say in Zen, but rather we say sit like the path, the Eightfold Path. Be the path, being path. That is the culmination of this path that we're on. So I hope that this teaching this week has been meaningful for you, that it points you to some very positive orientation and inspiring orientation about the human potential and what's possible, and that it has a lot to do in its culmination, in its consummation, with a wonderful way of living in this life that is free and generous, caring, and comes from this deep place that is our treasure that we have within. And may you be filled with the wealth of your inner treasure. Thank you. And so a couple of announcements. I will be here next week through the holiday next week. Then I'll be away for a week, and on vacation. And then I wanted to say that when I come back in the beginning of the year, I think it'll be the 7th of January, that the topic will be for the ongoing series, probably, I don't know how long it'll last, but as in the last few years, I do a whole series of talks and meditations that have to do with, I have been doing mindfulness and meditation, Anapanasati, Satipatthana Sutta. This next, beginning of next year, I want to do a whole series on samadhi, on concentration practice, something that's often considered to be not part of mindfulness, but which I want to really integrate into the practice of mindfulness. And then finally, for those of you who would like this end of the year to maybe make a donation to IMC, if you're interested, you can read my end of the year letter that I have on IMC's website under What's New, under Reflections from Gil. And also you'll find a link to it on this YouTube page, kind of underneath the video. So thank you, and I hope these solstice times bring you abundance of inner light. Thank you.